Jema, welcome. Here we are in our third session of our Nirvana Shatakam Community Contemplation Series. If you are new to this series, welcome. You can start anywhere. Each session here stands alone in its contemplation and exploration of Acharya Shunya's teachings on this sacred and beautiful text, Nirvana Shatakam. 6 small, compact, but powerful verses by Adi Shankaracharya. If you'd like, you can experience Acharya Shunya's satsangas in the playlist. And if you've had a chance to view those, these contemplation circles are an opportunity to go deeper into your experiential connection with those profound teachings. If you've not yet viewed those satsangas, no worries. You're welcome to just envelop yourselves in an experience of some of those teachings. And then when you do have the opportunity to hear those satsangas, they will strike a much deeper chord in you as you hear that wisdom as well. So let us begin with a gratitude and a prayer for the lineage, the wisdom teachings and traditions that have carried us through centuries, through millennia, and are reaching us right here, right now, having an impact in our true day-to-day modern lives. So with a moment of gratitude, we'll share these slides. You're welcome to chant along. You're welcome to simply listen, read along as you wish. Simply opening our hearts with reverence at the rare opportunity we have to embrace, explore these teachings that are leading us nowhere but deep into our own sacred self. Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Om Shanti Prakashaya Namaha. Om Ayodhyaнаthaya Namaha. Om Shunyacharya Namaha. Om Atma Tattvam Namaha. Om Vidya Tattvam Namaha. Om Surya Namaha. Hari Om Tat Sat. So let us begin. Previously, we've explored the introduction and context of Adi Shankaracharya, his unique and incredible life, and the context in which these verses emerged from him as an expression of deep self-recognition. Then we explored Acharya Shunya's teaching on the first verse. And today we'll go deeper into even a part of that verse. So I hope you're ready to drop in, to experience, to connect, and curious about what kind of insights will emerge from within you, what new understanding gets unfolded the more time we spend with this wisdom together. So I want to begin with a small story, a small sharing. I would like us to consider an artistic masterpiece. And what we'll be thinking on here is, I want to look at this sculpture. Maybe you're familiar with it. This is Michelangelo's David. And if you've seen this, if you've seen it in person, if you've seen it, just photos of it, it's an impeccable rendering of a larger than life human form, which seems out of marble to be breathing with just presence, with life. And yet it's formed out of this hard stone. And the really fascinating and unique thing about Michelangelo's process is that he believed that inside of these forms of raw marble that he was beginning with, he believed that living form was there inside that block. And something in his artistic genius, his intuitive genius, could intuit, could understand that inside of this rough piece of stone, already existing, was a sublime form. And he describes his work, he describes his process of sculpture as chipping away, sanding away, delicately, skillfully removing that encrusted outer layer, and that it would reveal the life within. So his approach, his idea of creating these sculptures was not that he was making a sculpture, making an artwork. Rather, he was removing to free a form inside this block of stone. And there is a beautiful parallel here when I see this work, when I see some of his partially formed works, when I think about that kind of artistic process, that level of artistic genius, I see such a profound parallel between that and the chipping away that we do on our spiritual journey, the exacting method that Vedic wisdom guides us toward, where we don't create our unique and shining soulful self. No, no, it exists. Advaita Vedanta tells us the self exists as covered and as unseen and as unintelligible as it seems. It is there. And there's a method, there's a process. All we have to do is remove the things that are covering it up. And eventually, slowly, but surely, we'll reach our goal of revealing that ever-present self within. And we saw this text, Nirvana Shatakam, which we are exploring in this series of conversations. It's guiding us. It's almost like a step-by-step how-to guide of where to chip, where to cut, where to sand, what to remove. It's a methodical, layer by layer instruction kit for what we need to remove, with the promise that the self exists within and will begin shining. And each verse, each of the first 5 verses of this brief text, give us a list almost, give us a very acute, a very sharp pointed arrow highlighting this is what you need to examine, perceive to be not the self, and set aside. So what we discussed in our last session together, we looked at the first verse. And in that first verse, we negated a few things. First, we looked at the 4 subtle aspects of the mind. We looked at the mind, the buddhi or intellect, the ahamkar, the ego, the I maker, the chitta, the memory. And we examined each facet of the mind, we looked at it, and we discerned that there was a part of us that was observing all these facets and concluding that they are not my deepest self. Because there's a part of me that is witnessing, and I'm able to observe these parts of my mind. And we walked through observing each of them and saying, okay, I can observe that. I'm not that. I'm this, the ever-present observing awareness. The next verse, and the next line in this verse we explored had us looking at our 5 sense organs. We took each one of our senses turn by turn. And again, we found that we could observe their inputs. We could observe the way they had an impression on our inner landscape. We could observe the way they caused fluctuations in the waves of the mind. And so therefore, since we are observing those things, we can say again, this process called neti neti, not this, not this. I'm not my senses. I'm not what comes through them. I'm not my sense organs. I'm the silent witnessing observer of those senses. The verse also then pointed us to looking at the five elements. And these five elements we explored, those are the things that the senses are getting impressions of. The earth, water, fire, air, space. We observe them. We observe their presence through our senses, all around us, in our own body. And again, we concluded that they are an object which is being observed by me, the self. So those also are not the self. And we found that uh, in that process, a space was kind of opened up. And these coverings are what are called adhyaropa. So methodically in this first verse itself, we were listed these, and we'll continue to explore many more subtle and gross kind of adhyaropa in the next few verses. But this word adhyaropa, Acharya Shunya and her satsanga on her satsanga also goes in depth into what is this thing, and it means a combination of adi aropa. It means something that is overlaid, superimposed, put on top of, added to something else. So all these things, so far we've explored one verse, we'll continue to explore more, are adhyaropa. They are the parts of the physical body, they're parts of the emotions, our relationship, our thoughts, our all kinds of things that keep us so busy, so distracted, so um, engaged, uh, so engaged in the world all around that our journey then is to gently remove them. Our journey then is to shed them, these superimpositions, so that we can experience what remains. And even in this last time, we did spend a little time noticing that as we shed, instead of feeling empty-handed, instead of feeling a void, instead of feeling like there was a lack, we actually discovered that there's a presence there. So this has been our journey with this text so far. And I want to pause here and invite you to contemplate for a moment on this idea of Adhyaropa. And I want to place before you a few questions. And these questions are about the framework that we have around what our spiritual journey is. You've heard today, you've heard recently about how we're removing to reveal what's true. So if that's our journey, if that's the journey that we're being led toward, let's pause together and look at that question. And the question is, when you know that this self you're searching for is covered by superimpositions, maybe you've been on a spiritual journey for decades, maybe for lifetimes. Maybe this is all new to you and you're grasping and grappling with what am I looking for? I'm thirsty for something. I don't know what it is. I'm trying to find it. So there's a thirst, there's a search happening. And when we're told from Vedic wisdom that that self you're searching for, it's there, it's simply covered. What does that tell you about the path or the work of awakening to the self? When you conceive of your spiritual journey as one of not adding anything else, but simply of removing what is not the self. This is an editing process, not a creating who you are process. What new understanding or perspective does it give you when you look at all the things that seem to be standing in your way of your spiritual journey? Often we feel like we're trying to make progress on our spiritual journey, but there are many things standing in our way. They'll be things like old habits that just won't quit, that are um, stuck. We still, after many weeks and years and months and again, lifetimes, can't control our speech and we blurt things out that we don't mean, that don't align with who we truly are, and yet they happen anyway. And we feel like we have to become better, do better, get better. Mm. Or there are hurdles in our way. We're so busy, and there doesn't seem to be time to re-listen to satsanga, to spend time in quiet contemplation and meditation. There are many demands on us. So all of those things seem like they are hurdles, they are struggles, they are emotions that are just a habit now, that keep arising and further clouding us from seeing who we truly are. So I invite you now to consider for a moment, maybe just a few minutes, just a moment, to sit with yourself and take a look at the nature of your spiritual journey right now. And look at all of the things that seem to be standing there between you as you are today and that self that you want to experience. And if our process here is simply to remove, to cast aside, to let drop off and fall off those things, and seeing them not as something we have to grow beyond, become bigger than, but something that we simply have to let go of. Does anything shift or change for you when you look at those challenges, when you look at that hurdles in front of you? And how does it feel to have this be described as the way forward? So just checking in with where you align on this path of Vedic inquiry into the self by negating all that we are not so that the self can be revealed. So you're welcome to take this contemplation with you and see how it sits with you in future. And I also invite you to imagine that if we are like this artist, or if this is the way forward, where we reveal perfection by simply cutting away what is just covering it up. The correlating truth that has to be there is that there is something underneath those coverings. The yearning that we feel, the sometimes ache we feel to be back in the company of our own self, to just throw it all aside and be again with our own deepest self. That's a sign. That's a homing device for us who are tangled up in all of these adhiropa, all of these coverings, which is the self beckoning us to unveil it. So not only in this Vedic journey do we negate what is not self, we also call forth that inner knowing. We also use knowledge, wisdom, practices to continue to re form the mind so that it can conceive of this potential that the self exists. It takes some convincing. The mind wants to see all the coverings. The mind wants to make a big deal out about all the things that we have to do and should do before we can entertain our spiritual journey. The mind likes for there to be a lot of rules, the way we need to do it all, the structure it has to have, and so at the same time as we are pulling away the curtain, we're also shining the light. And what we find in this Nirvana Shatakam is that Adi Shankaracharya, as systematically as he chips away at our ideas of who we are, which are covering up the self, he shines this light. He keeps this candle lit, which continues to tell us, you are not this, you are not this, you are not this, you are that. You are that. And so what happens in these last lines of each verse, we hear a refrain in this text that reminds us of what is waiting underneath those coverings. And so he tells us at each line, I am not this, not this, not this, listing all the things to cast aside, and then says, Chidananda Rupa Shivoham, Shivoham. Saying, I'm the form of that consciousness, bliss, just eternal awareness itself. I am Shiva. I am Shiva. And today we will explore that facet of this text, where we look at what is this Shivoham, Shivoham. It's saying, I am Shiva, I am Shiva. This word Shivoham, it's made up of two words, meaning Shiva and Aham. When they are combined in Sanskrit, it comes out, it's Shivoham. So Shiva, we will explore many meanings. It's saying Shiva, I am. So Shivoham, I am Shiva. So first, let's look at a few understandings of Shiva. In her Satsanga, Acharya Shunya unpacked the many, many facets of this word Shiva. Many of us may be familiar of it in terms of thinking of the Hindu god Shiva, part of the trinity of deities in Hinduism. But there are many other nuances of this word. And when we gather those together in a bouquet of meaning, there's a richness that just this one word can evoke a deep understanding in us. So let us look at some of these definitions, some of these meanings that have been shared with us in Satsanga, and let them land in our consciousness. So Acharya Shunya shares that meanings of this word Shiva. It means that ultimate reality that pervades all of creation. So not the creator, but that pervading ultimate existence that is inside of every particle of creation. Shiva also refers to the controller of everything, the laws that keep all of creation in movement, in balance, in dynamic dance. The auspicious one. And auspicious meaning more than just simply lucky. Auspicious meaning it's an embodiment of truth. And when there's truth, only favorable things can happen. And the implied idea here is that truth can sometimes be not what we want to hear, not what we would wish for, not what is our wildest dream, but it's the truth. It's the truth. And when we hear the truth, when we know the truth, when we speak the truth, when we live the truth, nothing but good can come from that. It's for the highest good of ourselves. It's for the highest good of all beings. And Shiva, this word Shiva, connects there. It's that auspiciousness. Shiva can also mean Atma, that indwelling soul, the self. Shiva means venerable, truly good, noble, worthy of worship. It also has these two components, Shi and Va. Shi, Va. So Shi refers to that material joy, the dharma, the worldly satisfaction of living and being in accordance with dharma, those vital guidance that we receive from within of how to live aligned with the highest good. So Shi and Va meaning bliss, that moksha, that material, that non-material happiness that comes from the Atma. So Shiva means both the worldly and the unworldly or non-worldly or otherworldly, just all of the bliss and happiness that exists by living well in the world and by connecting to our inner self and truth. Shiva also means self-effulgent, self-illumined. It's that light of awareness from within. So when we are conscious of Shiva within us, it's like a light is there, a light that is just pure awareness, just pure consciousness. And it comes from within. It is self-effulgent, self-lit. It also, she taught us, corresponds with that fourth state of consciousness. So in the Mandukya Upanishad, we are explained to about 4 different states that our mind is in. We are awake, we are dreaming, we are in deep sleep. And there's this fourth part of us, which is just the observer. It's that part of us that is present throughout all fluctuations and categorizations of our mind's activity. It's just existing. It is the consciousness foundation below all other experiences. I'll pause here, and I want to just mention each of these definitions again. And I would like you to do is sit where you are and let this layered definition of Shiva land in your awareness and cultivate a subtle perception of how it feels to receive that part of the truth. So we say that this one word encapsulates all these things. And the activity, the exercise that I'm guiding you through right now is to say there is this one potent word. And inside that word, there's many, many meanings existent. So when we say Shiva, we don't mean one of those things, we mean all of those things. And to cultivate an intimacy and an understanding of that word is to entertain its individual meanings, to bring them intellectually. We can read them, we could memorize this list, we could understand this list and know that, yes, Shiva means these 5, 6, 7, 8 different definitions. But now through this kind of contemplation and what Swadhyay, what self-study implies, is that we've heard these teachings from Acharya Shunya. Now our work as students is to sit with each of those meanings and words, allow them to land. And that's what I'm going to invite you to do right now. So I'll again share these few words of texture to this word Shiva. And this is a non-exhaustive list. but we're going to get a taste of it. And as you hear each one, allow that idea to filter in through the ears, to filter in through the mind. Notice its echo, its repercussion, without having to explain or put into words or intellectually then again grasp what that now means for you. Just let it land. And now we're in this process of bringing it from the head into our heart. We're bringing an idea into our lived experience. We're bringing knowledge into our self-revealed wisdom. This is a Mananam practice that Vedic seekers do. So let's do it together. So become still. If you have pencils or pens, please set them aside. Take a breath and just settle into where you are. And just soften the mind a little. You don't have to think too hard. Remember, this is not new knowledge we're hearing. We're revealing understanding from within. So I'll say the word Shiva and a facet of meaning. So Shiva is the ultimate reality that pervades all of creation. Let that filter through your being and settle. Shiva, the controller of everything. Let that filter and settle. Shiva, the auspicious one, the embodiment of truth, which can only be favorable. Shiva, Atma, self, soul. Shiva, venerable, truly good, noble, worthy of worship. Shiva, the material happiness through dharma, the non-material happiness from the Atma. Shiva, self-effulgent, the light of awareness from within. Shiva, the undivided observer that is present in all states of consciousness. Beautiful. So like this, we can take these verses word by word and hold each of them up in our palms and gaze at them and recall the various meanings, the various ways we've heard that word explained and expounded, and let those meanings wash over us. And the next time we say Shiva, the next time we hear Shiva, the experience, the wordless familiarity will arise within us. And like that, we cultivate a true, deep understanding from within of these teachings that we're receiving. So now let us take this whole word, Shivoham, Shivoham, and let us now explore that meaning. So we've taken one word, now we're taking two words, which are like a sentence. Shivoham, Shivoham. So we looked at this and we saw that this word Shivoham is this combination of two words translated as I am Shiva. So first is this word I. And this word I. Last time we saw this word I in this text, it was with the idea of ahamkara. Shivo aham. So it's aham, I am. So this sense of I-ness, last time we saw this, it was related to the mind's function of ahamkara, of ego, that creates the sense of individuality. So ahamkara means to create the sense of I. So from this substratum of I-ness, which is Shiva, the conscious presence underlying all things at all times, underlying all states of consciousness for all beings. From that consciousness comes this individuated sense of I, Ishani. I insert your name here. So this I. And the mind is constantly thinking of I. That's just what it does. It's just its function. It's just the way it works. So hearing this word aham, hearing this word I, the mind immediately recognizes I. And that becomes a very attention-getting, focusing mechanism for the mind to enter in to this inquiry. Now the mind is hearing a new kind of sentence, which it doesn't think all the time. It's hearing, I am Shiva. Shivoham. I am Shiva. That's a new idea that the mind is now having to consider. We are very much used to saying, I am a doctor, I am a lawyer, I am a mother, I am a neighbor, I am a banker, I am all these things. So here the mind is hearing from the repetition of the text, thinking as we see through, I am Shiva. So here we are toggling with the mind's conception of who it is. We're kind of we're poking at the reality that the mind has of who it is, and we're giving it something new to consider. We're saying, mind, you think you're many, many things, but let's look at this I. And now why don't we say that I am Shiva and see how this lands? And what we discovered earlier when we looked at that ahamkara and connected with our sense of I, the mind's sense of I, we discovered that actually it's not the self. This ego that I have that is very useful, that helps me operate in the world, that helps me do the things that are my responsibility, not do someone else's responsibility, but do my duty in the best of cases. We found that that's not the self. It's a useful function of the mind, but it's not who I truly deeply am. So here, this I is kind of making some cracks, can we say? Making some cracks in the idea of what is covering the self. And then we have I am. So in Sanskrit, the word is aham, meaning I am. It's all one word, meaning aham, I am. And this am. When you hear this word I am, that word am implies existence, implies presence, implies beingness, not something in a state of becoming, but it is, it fully is. I am means I exist, not necessarily with the certain additions of certain achievements or add-ons or labels or supports. No, I simply am. I am. And then we hear in this phrase, I am Shiva. And again, that word Shiva, when we hear that word Shiva, it comes with all of those, it carries with it all of those subtle, profound implications. It encompasses all of those meanings held inside of one simple word. So when I read this phrase, I am Shiva, when I tell myself I am Shiva, when I hear in the text Shivoham, it is a expanded way of thinking of my true identity. I thought I was my mind, I thought I was my senses, I thought I was something to do with this tangible world, but actually I am Shiva. I am Shiva. So the practice here is similar, where we let each piece of this phrase, Shivoham, I am Shiva, land within us, land in our being. It's like a bell that we're ringing. We say Shivoham, and the reverberations, they filter through our mind, they kind of even filter through our physical body, they filter through our ideas, our thoughts. We become infused with this message of truth. So I again ask you to sit with me in this practice. Sit with me in this exercise. And here's the simple practice where again we take these words of I am Shiva, Shivoham. And if English is not your first language, you can translate this phrase to whatever comes in your own language of I am Shiva. Or you can use Shivoham. So sit with me and just again, softening the mind, softening the intellectual idea, not grasping too hard. Open and soften the mind a bit. And first, let this word I am land within you. Let each sound of that word, so you can mentally repeat to yourself, I am Shiva. And let each word have its moment of falling on your consciousness and echoing. When we hear this I am Shiva, let the word I land. And when it does, that small ego part of us falls away. The I that we are talking about here is so much vaster than the I we've boxed ourselves into. So when you hear that word I, connect it to the vast truth of your identity rather than the boxed, compartmentalized coverings that you live inside of. So I. And when that word am lands in you, let it reverberate with the truth of existence that is beyond the body, beyond the mind. An existence, a presence that is there, that is beginningless, endless, that is so stable, so permanent, unshakable, unchanging, nothing to be added, nothing to be taken away. Let that am of existence land in you. Let it echo and reverberate. Let there come silence within. And now let this word Shiva enter into you. So Shiva. And just your organic, intuitive sensation of that word, the awareness that it unveils within you, just allow that bell within to be struck. Shiva. Let it reverberate. Let it settle into quiet. So finally, we will practice together a breathing in and a breathing out with this phrase. And this is a wonderful way to, again, increase your connection. I mean, there's no need to increase this connection. That connection is ever present, but increase your familiarity, increase your sense of intimacy, this idea of presence inside of you, Shiva, indwelling. And as we inhale and exhale, you can first, we'll try breathing in. And as we exhale, we're releasing all the adhyaropa, all the superimpositions. And so when we exhale, we release all those adhyaropa, those superimpositions. As we inhale awareness of that full expansiveness that is permeating the universe, permeating your being. And you can conduct the same wordings along with the rhythm of the breath. So you can take an inhale together. As we exhale, mentally repeating Shivo, inhaling, hum. Exhale, Shivo, inhaling, hum. A few more times on your own. Exhale, Shivo, inhale. Beautiful. And again, you can do this practice with the inhale, with Shivo, exhaling, hum. So here we might be inhaling Shiva, inhaling the truth of ultimate consciousness, exhaling hum, exhaling our sense of ego identity and who we think we are. Inhaling Shiva, exhaling hum. Breathing in and breathing out. Try on your own a few times. Beautiful. Welcome back. So this practice can be done by you anytime you're wishing to. Come closer. What happens when we do something like this practice, either contemplating or practicing, is it clears away, this phrase is meant to clear away our superimpositions, this work of negating verse by verse, line by line, removing all that we are not. It clears away, clears our field, and then coming back to the Shivoham, that then harmonizes us with the truth. So we create space and we align with truth. We clear away all those very hard, calcified ideas of who we think we are. We break a few of those free and then align with a deeper reality. Eventually, in the 6th verse of Nirvana Shatakam, we will receive direct teachings on what the self is. But for now, these first 5 verses, this is the rhythm. This is the dance that we are participating in. This is that work, if it can be called that, because it feels so peaceful along the way. It's soft work, as Acharya Shunya often says. It's not hard work. It's a soft work. So I like to imagine that, yes, in the process of chipping away, sanding away, breaking free that inner being from all of the adhirupa, from all of the outer coverings, at the same time, there is that Shiva within. There is that self-effulgent light within. And as I get closer and closer, as I sand away those layers to a finer, thinner thickness, that light is able to reach me from within. That light fills my mind more brightly. And eventually, in that process of removing, something is going to be revealed that is more beautiful than we could have ever imagined we could create. More incredible, absolutely beyond words. All words would fail us. The only thing we can say is that it's not that, and it's not that. All I can say is it's something called Shiva. Just keep this rhythm, keep this dance, clearing away and harmonizing in alignment. Yes. So this is where we end today. So far, we've looked deeply at the first part of verse 1 of this text, and we've sunk into an understanding of the refrain. Chidanandarupa Shivoham Shivoham. So as we progress, we can feel comforted by this rhythm. There will be many things that we'll feel we'll have to grapple with. As we break them away, we entertain an idea of ourselves without those coverings. But there will always, at every layer of excavation, of self-inquiry, be this sweet reminder of who we truly are, the Shiva within. So I invite you to continue to review and receive the satsangas from Acharya Shunya. I invite you to join me either live through the Vedic Study Circle or in these recordings, to spend time taking those gems of wisdom and knowledge that the teacher gives us, these gems of insight and instruction that we receive from the beautiful sage Adi Shankaracharya, that have guided thousands, hundreds, innumerable seekers just like us, to clear away all that we are not and come home to that Shiva within. You're welcome to join me in a closing prayer, which is taking us in the same journey from darkness of not understanding to the light of true understanding. Om Asato Ma Satkamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ peace, peace. Amen.